Did you know that when people normally try to lose weight, as much as 35% of that weight loss comes from muscle instead of fat? Now, did you also know that 60 to 70% of your basal metabolic rate, that's the rate at which you burn calories, or how many calories you burn if you sat still for 24 hours, that is largely controlled by the amount of muscle that you carry? So as you lose weight, the more muscle you lose, the harder it will become to lose weight. If you've experienced this, I have the solution for you. Hey everyone, it's me, Chris from Body Nova Fitness Coaching. Today, we're going to talk about a different style of dieting or a different way to tweak your nutrition program. And it can be used many different ways, but this is going to be narrow and just about fat loss, okay? So we're going to talk about carb cycling, and that's specifically carb cycling for fat loss. Because when this was real popular, the masses didn't understand it. They just saw it as a gimmick to use or a gimmick to get more people to view their videos. But where the problem lies with it is it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And I'll explain why that's the case. Okay, first off, let's start off with the definition. What exactly is carb cycling? Okay, carb cycling is just simply when you're on your nutrition program, you're varying the amount of carbs to try to suit your goal. So what some people will do is they will have low, medium, and high carb days where the carbs may be higher on a day that they're really, really active, or a lot of guys used to have their carbs higher on leg days, seeing that they were bigger muscles that they were using and it was a more strenuous session. So they would have the need to have more carbs on that day. But when they were trying to lose weight, they would have less carbs on maybe a day for arms, which is a smaller muscle group. Okay. Now, also in my world, comes with another definition, is calorie cycling. Okay, so you could cycle the carbs, but then you could also cycle the calories, which may also give you another way to cycle the carbs. I'll get into that later. Okay, but carb cycling is you're just varying the amount of carbs that you're having day to day based on activity and based on your goals. Some of the benefits of carb cycling: hey, it can help you break your plateaus with your weight loss and help keep you burning fat. It's great while preserving your muscle mass. Remember, your muscle mass controls most of the rate which you burn calories. So if you lose muscle, it becomes harder to lose weight because you don't burn as many calories. You can increase your energy levels while you're on low calories and help fuel your workouts, improve your performance during your workouts, and it can also help with your mental clarity and things like that. Because if you're going low calorie, low carb, zero carb for too long, a lot of people who do that experience a little brain fog. So you can get your carb cycling or your calorie cycling in a try. And you can also help create a bigger calorie deficit because you could cycle the calories to where you have less calories on days that you don't work out, or less calories groups that you need to get smaller or trim fat from, versus having more calories on days that you have a lot of activity. So it helps you balance those things out so you can perform better during your workouts, even when you're in smaller calorie deficits. So if you guys have any questions, feel free, drop me a message or a comment below. And anything you want me to dig deeper into, definitely let me know, because this is a complex topic and it's broad. And I hope these examples that I put together for you solve a lot of problems. One form of carb cycling that people very seldomly talk about, back in the day, Mauro Di Pasquale, he wrote a book called The Anabolic Diet. I think it's The Anabolic Diet, and then which later became his sequel of books, Metabolic Diet, Metabolic Solution, and stuff like that. So we'll just say he's one of the godfathers of, you can call him the godfather of ketogenic dieting. So a lot of people are going on these ketogenic diets and stuff like that, and they just think they stay keto forever. And what people don't understand is that you can only stay into ketosis so long before your metabolism starts to slow down, because your body likes to use the carbs or your thyroid likes to use the carbs. Understanding this would put people on cyclical ketogenic diets. it would be between maybe anywhere between 3 and 14 days, based on how much body fat you were carrying, and again, your activity and just how you basically responded and all that. So, like if you had higher in body fat, you can go as long as 14 days before carbon up. Where if you were lower in body fat and had a lot of activity or stuff like that, you would be closer to 3 days. Okay, but this became a good way for people to keep moving forward when they were when they were in ketosis, because once things started slowing down and they weren't losing as much weight, boom, a carb up day, and once the water from the carbs dropped, they would start to experience weight loss again, and then also their performance would pick back up for a bit of time. So that's a different form of carb cycling. So the way that carb circling can work for fat loss is very similar to how it would work in ketosis. Okay, when you're trying to lose weight, of course, you're going to be try to satisfy your calorie deficit, taking in less calories than you need to burn. But at the same time, most people would do that through reducing carbs, because as your body fat goes up, your ability to handle carbs goes down, or you become less insulin sensitive and more insulin resistant. Okay, so what you would want to do is you cycle your carbs. So as you start getting low and your performance starts to wane, you would pick up the carbs. It would get your metabolism going again, because your thyroid likes to use the carbs to run efficiently. You fill back up your glycogen storage, you perform well, and you can keep the ball rolling. And it was a good way to help people lose extra body fat. And on top of that, you could also cycle the calories. Okay, you could say, okay, I'm not working out today. I'm going to set my calories lower than I would maybe during a leg day, where the legs are big muscles and it requires a whole lot of work. With most diet plans, everything just stays constant. Your carb intake, your protein intake, your fat intake, and stuff like that. Where in carb cycling, of course, you can vary. You can vary it, and it really will help you get what you want from your fitness program and help you break a fitness plateau, weight loss plateau. So it would be really good with that. So now I like to individualize my carb cycling, because again, everyone doesn't have the same ability to tolerate carbs. So what I would do is I would try to give low, medium, and high carb days. What I try to do is I put the high carb day with the day that you would have the most activity. So maybe it's a day that you're doing a lot of cardio, on top of your weightlifting. Maybe it's on days where you have a high volume of lifting, like or you're working very large muscle groups, like when people work legs and things like that, versus a low carb day or a zero carb day. And for me, I would usually make that a day off, okay, because you don't need the carbs because you don't have the activity. And if I made that a low calorie day, also, you don't need the calories because you don't have the activity. So you match up the days. But one thing I would warn you, because what some people will do is they'll try to make the high carb day on an off day. I usually don't do that, because again, you're sitting, you don't need all those extra carbs. It's more likely to be stored as fat and less likely to be stored, less likely to be stored in the muscle, So I would take that high carb day, definitely do that on a workout day, probably on a day where I'm doing the most work. So I have the most muscle exhausted, or most of the glycogen stores. Glycogen is stored sugar, okay? As I do work, if I work my arms, the glycogen stores on my arms deplete, okay? And then if I do enough work, it'll deplete from everywhere else, okay? So if you do enough work, you have enough carbs to use, or you have the need for enough carbs to refill glycogen stores, so you could fill them in all those muscles and fill them in the liver, and they're less likely to spill over and be stored as fat. So that's another good thing to think about. But that's why you strategically put your low, medium, and high carb days. And I'll give you some examples later. I think that the best way to get somebody through this is to explain through an example. Okay, so this is a live example here, and in this example, I'm setting up the calories. I got this person, their maintenance is 3,250 calories. So basically, for this person to maintain their weight, they need 3,250 calories a day. So what I'm doing with this is I'm taking the 3,250 calories, and because remember, calories is going to be your most, it's going to be the variable that you can control to have the most impact with your nutrition. I created a calorie deficit. So I created a 20% calorie deficit. So that got our calories down to 2,600. So you got to remember, a calorie deficit is when you take in less calories than is required to maintain your current weight or your current body. So I have as a 20% deficit, and it brings us down to 2,600 calories. This person, let's say this person has a higher body fat, because when you look at some of the variables that come into play when your carb cycling is, your body fat is probably the next important to your weight or your lean body mass, because lean body mass is going to dictate your calories, most of your calorie burn. Next will be your calorie intake and then your macros, okay? Because the calories will drive the result, but the macros will make you look good. So anyway, 2,600 calories, you have higher body fat. You don't have the carb tolerance that someone who's very lean has. So you're going to start with a lower carb on most days, and then on days where you have the extra activity, those would have the higher carb days. So this scenario here, we're going to look at this, and this is again for fat loss, 2,600 calories. Okay, we're going 40% on the high fat day, 40% fats, 35% protein, 25% carbs. Okay, and then we're going to flip that. For the higher carb day, we're going to flip the carbs and the fats, because usually you don't want high carb and high fat. You want either high carb, low fat, or high fat, low carb. You don't want both at the same time. And then I keep the protein intake the same. So for the high fat day, you have 35% protein, which is 228 grams of protein per day, 40% fats, 115 grams of fats, okay, and 162 grams of carbs for 25% carbs, and 2,600 calories is calorie intake. Now, the higher carb day would have 40% carbs, which gives them 260 grams of carbs, and 35% protein. Again, that's the 228. That's going to stay the same in both scenarios, and the fat at 73 grams. Now, I can throw another day in here that is a middle day, because what I would do is I would have the higher carb day on the days, again, where I have the most activity on working the biggest body parts. So if I use my own workout as an example, I have back and triceps. Back is one of the largest muscles in the body, even though tricep is one of the small ones. Back is one of the largest. The legs, of course, the hamstrings and quads are also very large, requires a lot of effort. So I would make those the high carb days. Those medium carb days where I have the split it down the middle, I made everything isocaloric. Caloric basically just means same calories. So it's 33% of the calories coming from fat, 33% of the calories coming from protein, and 30% of the calories coming from carbs. And this is how that. And those would be on the days with less activity, on the smaller body parts. So if I have chest and bicep and shoulders and calves, obviously those are smaller than the other muscles. So those would be a lower carb day, and I would have the high fat days for the 2 off days that I would have per week. I would usually make these to where they follow the body part, okay? Because I have some clients where they don't have a lot of time to spend in the gym, but they can come daily and they want to do things to push their results. So I will increase the frequency of their workouts. So if they had workout split or 3-day split for their workouts, I can make them beat that over the 7-day cycle. So in this case, if they had maybe back and chest one day, legs the second day, take the 3rd day off, shoulders, bis, and tris, okay, they can take that next day off and then start the cycle again with back and chest and then legs, and start that whole cycle over again. So in that case, I would have that instead of where a lot of people always work out certain exercises, certain groups like chest on Monday. Those macro profiles and the calorie profiles follow the same workout, so that you're making sure you're getting your carb cycle. And you have an activity required to handle the carb cycling, and then we're always monitoring body fat and how you're feeling and things like that, so we can get that right. These, where most people made the mistake or make the mistake with carb cycling, is they have one carb cycling program that they give to everybody, no matter how big they are or how muscular they are, how small they are, how fat they are, whether they work out a lot and have long workouts or they work out little, what they're doing that day. It's the same profiles. And the key to getting this right is to visualize with how you tolerate carbs. Because again, someone with higher body fat has a higher insulin resistance, not handle and get carbs around to the right place as someone who is leaner with lower body fat and has lower insulin resistance and what they call higher insulin sensitivity. Their bodies are very good at getting sugars out of the bloodstream into the right places. I hope this helps. And if you have any questions, or even if you want me to help you create your own plan, feel free to drop me a message or comment below. Okay, almost forgot here, but this is going to be an example of calorie cycling. Okay, well, it's carb cycling, but it's also calorie cycling. So I'm going to take my same example here, and one of the things I can do is, because my low carb day is also on my off day, where I don't need that many calories or need as much calories, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 200 calories away from that and bring those calories down to 2,400 from the original 2,600 that we have in the original example of the carb cycling. And I can take that 200 calories and move that to one of the higher carb, higher calorie days, which 200 calories is going to equal about 50 grams of carb. This is a very simple example. So I can take those 200 calories and add another 50 grams of carb to the high carb day, bringing the calories up from 2,600 to 2,800 on the higher calorie day, high carb day, and bringing the low carb, low calorie day down to 2,400, which if you have one of each, if you do it equally, one day with higher calories and one day with the same amount of lower calories, it still averages out to 2,600, because over the course of the week, it's going to be, the deficit will be 2,600 or 2,600 calories is what the calories that are the daily calorie intake. So if I have 2,400 on one day and 2,800 on the next day, the average is still 2,600. I've maintained my calorie deficit, and I've given myself more fuel on a day that I might need it and less fuel on a day that I might not need it. And I've cycled my calories, but I've also cycled my carbs. You kind of see how that could also work together in a program, especially when you're on tight calorie intakes and you're trying to break a plateau. This is why this could be a strategy that's useful to you, but you have to set everything up properly. Okay, getting that carb intake right, but also getting that calorie intake right, which is why I started this using my calorie deficit instead of basing it off my calorie maintenance, because maintenance would just keep me there and it won't matter. But the deficit, of course, working within the deficit, that will make sure that I'm still having the calorie deficit that I need to lose weight, but making sure I have protein to rebuild and repair and recover, and the carbs that I need to help fuel my workout so I can perform strong and perform well enough to force the changes that I need as far as growing muscle is concerned.